Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever time it is. Hi and welcome. It's myself and Jeffrey here again for another episode of Let's Talk, where we kind of talk about different things to do with WordPress, web design, AI, and all those kinds of things that are going on in the industry and also in what we are doing. So, Jeffrey, how are you this week?
I'm doing wonderful. How about you, Paul?
I'm very, very good. Thank you very much, sir. It's good to be back and having a chat.
Yes, it is. I look forward to it. Now, I do got to give a fair warning. I forgot to tell you before the call.
Okay.
Here in Thailand, we have the loudest insects in the world. Right now, they're not going off, but right outside my window in this tree, it is full of ear piercing insects. If you hear it, like it's just them going off doing their mating thing. Yeah.
It's an
Hopefully it
insect
doesn't
orgy.
happen. Dude, all week long it's trying to record around the insects. Like when the insects go, I can record. Yeah, and it
Okay.
is. We drove, I mean, this is kind of gross, but we drove under the trees yesterday and we're
Right.
just getting mist in our
Oh, right.
face.
Yeah. That's not what you want, is it?
Life in Thailand, man. Living
Yeah.
the dream.
I, I, I did have a sort of immediate thing I was going to say there, but I kind of thought I'll just correct myself and won't say anything. So, if anybody that's in the chat and watching, if you could just let us know if you can hear us and see us and if everything sounds and looks okay, that would be absolutely phenomenal. We've got a couple of topics to talk about today, but as always, with the whole Let's Talk thing, it's just me, Jeffrey, and you guys talking about stuff as if we're in the pub having a chat, talk about things that we kind of find interesting, topics that are kind of popped up over the last week, last month, things that we are doing, things that we're seeing, and so on. So, I mean, the first one that I kind of think we talked about this very, very briefly off air is the whole AI bro sort of movement that's happening right now, where you're seeing so many videos out there from people that are jumping on the AI bandwagon, and it's all, your $10,000 website, your $15,000 website. I built this website in 3 minutes and I can sell it for 10 grand. What are your thoughts on that kind of thing? And do you think it's detrimental to the actual way that AI is realistically being used in our industry?
I mean, I think it definitely has a negative impact because AI it is a powerful tool that we're going to be using inside of our industry, but I've seen this trend before. You know, when I moved out here to Thailand 10 years ago, all of a sudden it was the drop shipping. And, I saw that trend. It was just people going from one thing to the other. And it was about getting rich quick. Then it
Yes.
was like NFTs and then it was crypto. And I believe it's the same, we're seeing the same thing. It's the same trend happening with the same type, I guess I should say.
It is absolutely that. I watched a video the other day. Again, we were talking this very, very briefly. Very impressive. You sort of take in tools like Claude Code and you're using tools like Kling and you're getting that to generate 3D exploding models of spaceships and houses and things, and then putting that into a design and building a sort of a landing page, one page landing page out. And it looks very impressive. Lovely smooth animations. You're very Apple-esque, kind of scrolling the page, see the sort of product explode, all those kinds of things. It's impressive, but it's basically just like a tech demo. When you see tech demos for things like the new NVIDIA cards when they're coming out, you've got the next generation, they're showing you the kinds of things they can do with the ray tracing and the 3D modeling, all those kinds of things. It looks incredibly impressive, but that never seems to translate into real world end use cases. We get parts of it, and in this case, you could utilize parts of it. But when it comes to a real world client paying project, what do you see as the kind of barriers, the hurdles, the differences between that tech demo we're seeing and the reality of actually building something using something like Claude Code for a client?
Yeah, well, doing like a tech demo or a prompting demo and like, look at what I created in 10 minutes, like those kind of things, it's not showing a real problem that's being solved with a real client in a real situation. Things like that have a completely different approach. And, it's cool to see it, but it's kind of like a parlor trick. It's kind of like look at this trick I just pulled out. Like pencil.dev. It is a cool tool. I see some cool stuff. I played around with it, but nobody shows taking the design that Claude spits out in
Yeah.
pencil.dev and editing it. If you try to edit it, all of a sudden you're like, wait, where do we manage the variables? How does this thing work? That doesn't get shown.
Yes.
Only cool factor gets shown. So this kind of like, I spotted this as, like my feed is all AI because I am learning. I'm in it and I believe we need to learn it. And, going back to your question, like, is it a detriment, like having these grifter types or these, like who aren't really showing the process? It is because it's important to learn it, but there's a process in web design and development and working with clients and working to solve problems that's not being shown. I think one person who did really good is Julian from MemberStack. He did a video on the Flux channel, and that was a great example of showing the actual progress, a process in
Yes.
building a website with AI.
Yeah, there's the difference. There's the process. What you see is, and the same with the tech demos and things like that, is that they will show you the beginning, they will tease what they do, and then they will show you the end result. But they don't show you what happens and what really needs to happen between those different stages. I think one of the biggest problems we kind of have at this point in time is the connection between all the moving pieces. There's AI, like you say, in Framer, sorry, not Framer, into Figma. There's AI then in tools like Elementor, AI coming into WordPress 7 and so on. We need to have the connections between those pieces before it becomes a sort of process that we can realistically start to utilize and build things. Now, MCP service and things like that are making things like this easier, but we do need to have that interoperability, which is a difficult word to say this time in the morning, between those different. I'll put the definition up on screen now if I can figure it out. But it's still, I still feel like it's missing those connectors between the various different parts. It's interesting, it's exciting, and I think neither of us are saying that, AI is a fleeting thing that's going to be here for 5 minutes, then it's going to be gone. We know this is in this industry for the long run, and is going to change the industry. But AI itself is going to change, and I think we need those connectors between those moving parts to make it a viable way of being able to replace or replicate the typical process that you or I would use to work with a client and create a project.
Yeah, and there's so many different parts of the process. Now, like WordPress puts a lot of those parts together. Designing a website with a regular web design process, we kind of like know it already. And we could use tools like Reloom to speed it up. But going directly into Claude Code, where does that process, what does it look like? What do we do? And if we just rely on AI to do everything, that's dangerous for those of us creating websites for clients. We got to understand it. And like so far, my journey into all this and trying to learn the process and understand it has put me on a path of learning. It is like, it's been exciting.
Yes.
Like it's a challenge to go to bed nowadays because like it is exciting. Like I'm trying to learn, okay, how do I set up Docker? How do I manage containers? Now I'm trying to learn Git. I'm in Terminal, things I've never done before. I've always been a front end guy, but now after experimenting several times, like building apps and websites with Claude Code, realizing the mistakes that I made, having to fix those mistakes, and then realizing I don't know what's going on, that bothers me. As it just doesn't sit right with me. Like I got to understand, why did you choose this? Why are we using this? How do we connect this and how does that work? So we have to learn, at least
Yeah.
that's where I'm at and how I feel.
No, I'm 100% with you there. I mean, sort of, I've been delving into Claude Code only the last couple of days, and the one thing that just is highlighted after using Claude Code, Bolt, Lovable, those kinds of tools is there's often 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. It's like you build something out, and it's like, that's cool. Now, I can see there's deficiencies here, and I need to address those. You want to add extra things in, whatever it is, or tweak the design, the layout, and so on. Then you ask it to do that, and it comes back confidently saying, this is all the things that I've done. And then you open the screen up, and it's blank. And it's like, well, you've broken what you've created. Then you then spend, at least half a dozen questions going back and forth, trying to get it to fix whatever the problem was. And that process, Claude Code inside VS Code, for example, is slow. Claude Code is probably getting hammered big time, and unless you pay in the big bucks, you're probably on a slower connection with it. But what you find is that it takes you 10 minutes when it's made a mistake, and then it comes back and it's still got a blank screen. You can tell I experienced this last night. So you literally spent about 40 minutes getting it to figure out what problem it had introduced from what you'd asked it to do, and then getting it to backtrack, undo all those things it's added in to get it to the position 1, and now it's got to go back, undo all those things to get you to where you wanted to be 5 prompts ago and 45 minutes ago. Now, to me, yes, I'm sure, you've got to get better at prompting. But again, you watch what the AI bros are doing. It's like they'll just sit there and talk to the thing, go, yeah, make it more bold and change the color. And it's like, and then suddenly you get a completely refreshed design. And it's like, the reality isn't quite there with that. Not in my experience anyway. I mean, do you find the same thing where you've been experimenting with the different AI tools like Claude Code and things?
Yeah, and then you time out. You start going somewhere, and then all
you
of
run
a
the
sudden it's
credits.
like, yeah, you got to wait for 4 hours, and like,
Yeah.
do I want to pay $100, to keep
Yes.
going? And it
Which
gets
is what it's
tempting.
doing. Yeah, it's gamification. It's game. It's basically, you were probably the same as me. You've got one tab open in your browser with your usage, and then you're using something like VS Code or something like that to actually work on it, and then you were back and forth between it to see how much usage, and then do you have to wait the 4 hours? Then is there another 7 days before it tops up the overall thing? And it's kind of like they've gamified that to really push you over to upgrade into the $100, $200, and even then, you're probably going to hit those limits quite quickly.
Yeah, yeah, it's getting me. I'm very close, very close to upgrading. Uh, I think those of us though who build websites as a living, it's different from the AI bros.
Yes.
Like when I think of the AI bros, I'm thinking of somebody who is just coming from day trading, from like the whole crypto thing, like Twitter, something on X, like what we see over there. And then all of a sudden, it's like now I'm building apps. I think those of us who have been building websites for clients, real projects, solving real problems, we understand processes. We already went through that learning curve because I remember when I started building websites, I had no idea. I was learning one thing at a time. And if I were to look back at those projects now, like my first couple of years, so many improvements, not just like in design skills, but in understanding the process behind it, understanding how do we connect the right security, how do we optimize things correctly, all those type of things. It just fell into place through experience. So with experienced web creators, designers, developers, like we're coming into this with a huge advantage because we understand that side. I just don't feel like that is really what's being popularized right now. It's
No,
something else that's happening.
it's because that's boring. Would you rather have, people like us talking about the realities of it, or would you rather watch a really polished demo of how you build an amazing site in 3 minutes and then you're told you could sell that for 10 grand? That's the exciting factor because that's the advert that gets, the 100,000 views on YouTube, whereas our videos where we're more realistic about it, more sort of, this is real world, get like a tenth of that. People don't want to hear reality. We all want to sort of buy into that, but we've both found out, and a lot of people I talk to are the same thing. You spend a lot of time undoing the problems that the AI introduces into whatever it is you're trying to create. Now, will that get better? I'm sure it will, but we still don't know what's actually going on. We're telling it to do something, and it comes back with a pile of code and a pile of information. But I would say that most people, especially those that are outside understanding what any of that is even going on, will just go, yes, 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 without paying any attention to it. So they don't have an understanding. So when things go wrong, they don't know what to say. You can go, fix it, and have a screenshot of it. But if you've got a blank screen and you don't know what's going on, how do you tell it? What do you prompt it with? So like you say, there's an advantage to knowing or having experience in building sites and the sort of technologies behind it. So at least you can go in there with a much better understanding of what to say, how to say it, and how you help that AI understand what it is you're trying to get it to do.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of sounds like when we get a site that a client tried to build themselves and they hand it
Yeah,
over to us and say, I was building it and it was going great. And then all of a sudden things just started breaking. Can you fix this for me? You
yeah,
know, and you know that feeling when you get one of those
yeah,
is like, yeah, we,
yeah.
we, we need to hit the nuclear button and start
Yeah.
over if
Yeah.
we're going to
You,
do
you
this.
look at the dashboard, there's 47 plugins in there, seven haven't been updated in 3 years. Two, you have no idea what they do. And there's 17 themes in there. And it's like, geez, what do I do to correct this crap? It's a whole bird's nest of shit. Like, so yeah, which kind of leads me on to WordPress 7 and the AI features that's kind of slowly introducing. I mean, I did a video last week on the sort of AI experiments feature, which is very, very safe starting point. I mean, there's two aspects to it. There's the one where you've got the connector, which allows you to choose like Claude Code, ChatGPT, and one other one I think it is. That, like I said at the time, I think that's smart because it means then you have one location where you put your API keys in, and then the plugins can kind of connect into that. So it makes your life a little bit easier, and it should make the plugin developers' lives easier. But what they've introduced so far is very, very safe. And the feedback that I kind of got on that video was generally, would I use a lot of these features? Because once you start looking at the cost of the API credits and tokens and stuff like that, would you use it? Would you realistically use it? And I could see the common sense in a lot of that because you are spending money then on things that are relatively simple and maybe should be done, like titles, alt tags, and stuff like that. But then I can also see the flip side of it, where if you are taking a client's website, for example, and you would sort of redesign it but using their assets, you don't want to manually go through and maybe set up alt tags, for example, on 1,000 images and stuff like that. So I can see the benefits. I can see why they took this sort of tentative approach. And I'm interested to see where they go afterwards. But I mean, have you tried it out yourself? Have you looked into these AI experiments for WordPress 7 at all?
I looked into it. I didn't try it out. I haven't tested the latest version, WordPress 7. It's in beta still, right?
Yes.
Like I haven't tested that, but I did take a look, and I think the SEO stuff, that's great. You know, like that just saves a lot of time and it prevents issues. It prevents errors that could be costly. A lot of websites that I got from clients where they had somebody who was a bit newer build their website, and they would say, well, we never got traffic. We would get the website and just see that, you know, the person who built it didn't really understand to at least do the basics for SEO. Do you know, I saw it. I think this new update's pretty good. I welcome these features. I mean, I'm not really big on image generation. It's
No.
okay, I guess, for fillers, but I just never cared for it. I'd rather, you know, find images, create graphics, or, you know, find another source. But that always comes at the last stage of the website for me, in the design and development stage. But yeah, I think it's good. It's smart. I think WordPress knows they have to. You know, I
Yes.
kind of feel like everybody knows they have to. I think Elementor knows they have to. Seeing Hostinger, they're going like just bonkers with their AI. You could tell they're going all in. I think the people. I think a lot of especially in the WordPress space, a lot of them know like we got to start, you know, staying ahead because at the same time, I don't know. I don't. What do you think's going to? Do you think WordPress has anything to worry about right now?
Yes and no. I think yes because new adoption may tailor off, but I think you've got to kind of look at where WordPress is and what WordPress's target market is, because we look at it from a very different point of view to what I think people in WordPress itself look at it as. We look at it as sort of developers and agencies and freelancers and so on. That's our bubble because that's the kind of world we move around in. And we see the frustrations and the slowness of WordPress's development and all those kinds of things. And so we get frustrated with that. But I don't think we necessarily see it from a higher level where a lot of the clients like NASA and stuff like that, they're probably not interested in having all these cool bells and whistles that maybe people like us are interested in having, because while it might improve their workflow potentially, it also introduces another failure point into the overall system that they're using. So you kind of have to wonder, where WordPress actually prioritizes their time investment and the sort of features that they introduce, and maybe that's why they're being so slow in how they're rolling out features that are AI related in WordPress itself, and starting off with things like your titles, your alt tags, your SEO and stuff like that, things that could benefit the sort of more sort of larger corporate clients that have maybe 10,000, 50,000 articles and content and stuff like that on their websites. So I think this is the difficult thing, and I know that I sort of fall and prey to it all the time, as I look at it from my bubble, which isn't necessarily the same bubble as the higher ups and the people that are actually looking at how do we make WordPress a financially viable platform, sort of, and make it sustainable. So I do think they do have an adoption issue. I think they have a trust issue as well, because not to start back up into the things we've talked about like probably a year or so ago, or maybe longer than that, but there is more drama again surrounding certain leadership inside WordPress and how they're sort of presenting themselves via the official WordPress, for example, X account and stuff like that. It's just, none of these things make WordPress something that maybe bigger corporations want to get involved in. Because if you were outside looking in on this and you've seen the things like what's going on, you may think, well, AI is something that we're interested in. We look at the disruption that's inside WordPress itself and the community and all those kinds of things. Do we really want to be part of something that looks like that? Or do we want to look at an alternative? So maybe, like you say, like we've got companies like hosting and companies like Wix and things like that, and Squarespace. I know it's very different. It's not open source, and it's a very different target market. But there's also the potential that they will pick up those people that would originally have gone for something like WordPress, and they moved over to alternatives because of those reasons.
Yeah. It's the drama side. That part really did not help WordPress at all, right?
No.
Something about billionaires. I don't know. That's another topic, though.
Yes.
I am going to take us off topic there. And I was like, should I even do this? But okay, I was watching Bones. I don't know if you know that TV show Bones. Like,
yeah, with what's the name of the Buffy in it? Is it?
Yeah. So, it's just something I watch when I have my lunch or breakfast. That just helps me not to think. And I was watching, it's an old episode, and they had an AI robot in it.
Right.
And, and I was like, this is like 10 years ago. It was like somebody actually in a costume pretending, very obvious. But then like the other, somebody mentioned in there, they're calling him a conspiracy theorist, interrogating him. He's like, you don't know those, they're building the AI to help kids with autism, but they're going to sell it to the people who are the biggest bidders, and it's going to be the military wanting to use it for weapons. They said that. I was like, holy shit, this just happened. This is happening right now. Yeah. And this is like a discussion I've had with some people. We're like, I thought Sam Altman was talking about making medical advancements. I thought this is supposed to like help out the human race. And yet there was something just like posted with like a retreat with some of the top medical experts, and they started asking them, who here knows what ChatGPT is? And like 2 raised their hand. And I'm like, wow, so the medical experts have no idea about the technology, is being used primarily to build websites and apps on Twitter. And now we're finding out that, the Department of War is like they're fighting over who gets that. It's just like, wow. So, and I started thinking, I know this is going down a different dark path, but isn't this like history repeating itself? Somebody creates something that could better humanity, but then it gets twisted up into humanity's darkness.
Isn't that human nature, full stop? Human nature 101 is like, we build something that could help people, but we can find a way to use it to destroy things. Let's use that. Let's go for that. That's where the money is. Look at anything to do with military, or anything to do with sort of companies that develop armored vehicles, weapons, all those kinds of things. The software that even runs those, and you'll see that they are going to be at the forefront of using that technology because, well, apart from anything else, the scary thing is we know that AI hallucinates. And if you've been watching anything to do with the news lately, and I'm sure you probably have because you just brought this up, is that AI is reportedly being used to determine targets and things like that. And then afterwards, it's coming back and going, it was a bit wrong. It's not a case of like you've just gone and bombed an empty facility. You're doing things like bombing things where people are, civilians are. Don't want to get into this because it's a completely different sort of topic altogether, not something I think is there for us to talk about. But I do think it is absolutely what's going to happen with AI. We can look at things like Terminator and we can smile and go, oh, yeah, the machines are going to take over. But the reality of it is what happened there, how all that started is because of military usage. They wanted to take that technology, that AI technology, into military usage. That's a dark path that once you go down that, which is where we're already got one foot in there, that's what the governments want, then you are opening a terrifying can of worms for what could happen. I'm not going to say, tomorrow we're going to have Judgment Day, but it's not good. When you think that it can't come back and create a web page without having problems of 3 steps backwards, where's the common sense to say we're in a position now where that AI is competent enough to be able to do things from a military point of view where lives are at stake? That's a terrifying thought. And it's a thought that's becoming reality.
Yeah. And I try not to get into the news. I mean, I try to just barely, briefly kind of poke my head out of the sand. Like, okay, it's still fucked up out there. Let me go back in here and focus on what I can do, which is trying to be a better person, provide a better life for, me, my partner, my dogs, my family, things that are important. But it is, we're talking about AI. I don't know. I just got like a whole different I've already heard it before, but now like my perspective on the leaders who are in control of it is now like, yeah, these guys are they're not good. So it is something to know because we don't know what's going to happen, and I don't know what would happen if we had the bubble. And I know this is going into a different direction. That's why I didn't know if I should bring it up.
No. Look. You've got to question why the governments are investing so much money into the AI infrastructure and how they potentially bail those companies out. Because you look at things like ChatGPT and so on, they are nowhere near profitable. They are burning so much money every single month. And on top of that, the amount of energy that's required inside these sort of AI farms and stuff like that, it's like, it is terrifying. It's already having a massive impact. You can't, you look at what's happening worldwide, but also look at things like the tech side of things. Memory, hard drives, storage, all those things, they're exponentially more expensive now, all because of AI. While we enjoy the benefits of it and we like to sit there with Claude Code and get it to create, I don't know, like a CSS framework generator, which is a bit of fun from our point of view. Cool, fun. Look at these kinds of things. But I think we're also being very blasé and I can't say so much naive, but maybe just sort of put our head the other way and going like, all those negatives, they don't matter. They don't matter. I can build a website faster. I can sell it for 10 grand and I can do some deep fake AI video. My life is good.
Hey, I'm making $300,000 a month and all you got to do is join my school. I'll show you how.
And it cost of that $3,000 per month to join.
That's it. All I need is 100.
Yeah, we've all been there, I think, haven't we? So let's move away from the dark path. And while we're talking about these things, Bricks 2.3 dropped today, which was a bit of a shocker because I didn't even know we didn't even see a beta version of it come out, or beta. So it's kind of weird when you think that 2.2 had, I think, like a couple of beta releases and then a couple of RC releases, and then 2.3 dropped straight away with none of that. And obviously the standout feature there when we're talking about AI is their ability to now be able to import, copy and paste code in. So I know you said you haven't seen it, but basically what you've got is you could use something like Claude, or you could use something, that allows you to generate design layouts and so on that use CSS, HTML, JavaScript, and you can paste those directly into bricks, and it will then interpret that and pull in the design and also pull in the sort of the CSS, and you can tell it whether you want to use the framework and so on. Now, I haven't tested because I literally watched the video sort of an hour before we jumped on the live stream. So my immediate reaction, and hey Toby, good to see you, and I seen you comment on it as well, and I'd love to get your feedback on this, is it was creating its own variables and classes and so on. So for me, that seems really inefficient. So I want to know, can we actually feed, for example, Claude Code and say, right, this is the framework we're using, these are the variables, the classes and so on. You need to use those, and I want you to design, let's just say a section or entire page, hero section, whatever, using those variables and classes. And as long as we can do that, I could see it could be useful, because then we're not pulling in a bunch of redundant crap that we don't need. Hey, Dave. So that will be interesting. So I need to test that out. So hopefully I've got a call this afternoon, so I don't know if I'm able to do it today, but it is something I want to check out. But I know while you haven't seen it, what are your thoughts on having that implemented as opposed to maybe like an MCP server or an AI sort of agent that allows you to directly do this inside bricks sort of right now? I mean, what direction would you like to see this going in when you kind of think of things like Angie and so on in Elementor?
Well, I don't want to have variables that I don't create myself created for me, or classes. I'm a minimalist. I like to keep my framework slim so I know exactly what's going on. When I start seeing extra variables and classes, I'm like, what is it? I just have to have that knowing of what it is. So yeah, I wouldn't do that. I just wouldn't. I want what I built and created in my own framework. And I've also come to learn that bricks, it doesn't have to be all classes. And this is a mistake that I made, because I got into the perfectionism stage of bricks, where I was trying to do everything perfectly. And I've gone through many different reiterations of my framework using Core Framework. And I've used other frameworks as well. And as my site was growing, I found that I waste so much time trying to overthink classes and systems, when sometimes IDs are okay. Sometimes I just got to go in and make a change while it's in tablet mode and not worry about a class being there for that. So I guess with that said, like, I like to keep the framework slim and what I know, so I could repeat, and then use a builder as a builder when it's needed.
Yeah, I agree. And as long as you can kind of do that, I'm probably like, let's say 90% positive that we could use something like Claude Code or something like that, and we give it the CSS framework and the variables and so on we're using, and it will utilize those, and we keep that consistency. I wish they'd sort of shown that in the demo, as opposed to, oh, look at it, it creates a pile of this. Because that seems to me like counterintuitive, because all I did is I looked at that demo and I thought I could probably make that quicker by using something like Brixies than I could doing it that way, where I've got to literally go in and do a bunch of remedial work to tidy up all the crap that I don't want to use and all the bits that are not sort of displaying the way that I want them to be displayed. And I kind of felt like, am I actually benefiting from this, or am I just literally making more work for myself, where I've got to go in, tidy up those classes that are no longer used, which that is itself isn't very easy, because you need to know what classes have been added in. But as long as you can kind of use your variables in your classes, or even just like load your entire framework in and say, like, this is the framework I'm using, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I could see the benefits to it. I could see it being useful. But again, I hope these are things that we can turn on and off, because I think there's benefits to it. But also sometimes you just like, I just want to get all that clutter and crap out of the way and just let me focus on, I want to be creative. I want to do it my way. I don't want to sit here and prompt the AI to do things and then go, oh, that isn't what I wanted. I wanted to do it this way. I want my creative flow. And I think you lose that. And maybe that's just because, I come from a design background. I come from doing those things. That's part of the process. And yes, there's things you think, oh God, that should be so much quicker. And maybe that's where the AI side of thing comes in. I don't want it to replace me. And I think that's the frustrating part. I think we're going to just end up seeing a bunch of sites and a bunch of designs that all just end up looking the same, as we saw with the first sort of generation of AI creating websites. Everything was based upon Tailwind with the sort of the blue and the purple, or the gradients, the sort of interfont and stuff like that, which you still get if you use Claude Code unless you use some of the skills in it. So it's like, do I want it to replace me? Do I really want to just like give all that up for what's considered to be more ease of use? I mean, what are your thoughts? How do you kind of see this?
Well, I see it as being like an extension. Like, I am super curious, and I'm about to start testing this out. I'm right now working on MCPs, and I have to say, I did some research on MCPs in WordPress, and it's really hard to find good examples and good like workflows, especially with the current versions. There really isn't not that there's not that much out there showing how this applies. Like, I've been using MCPs in other tools, but like in WordPress, like, because I do have training that I am preparing, setting up. So I'm diving in there. I'm starting to get familiar with Dynamic OO, their
Yes.
MCP,
Yeah.
and I want to see. I want to see what I could do. I want to bring my Claude Code using my local by Flywheel, letting it go in there, but very carefully and exploring. Like, I want to experiment. But yes, turning full control over it, nah. That's not going to work. When it comes to being creative, we got to flex those muscles. We got to think creatively. We got to think and use our brains. If we don't, we go backwards. And
But I think
yeah, go ahead.
if you kind of just, if you rely on AI to do it, as we said earlier on in the stream, is that it's very easy that as you kind of, and design is an iterative process. Whether you're using Figma or you're designing it in any way, it's an iterative process. You start off with something you think looks good, and then you go, I want to change this. Something about the balance isn't right, or something about the typography isn't right, or whatever it is. And we use that process to iterate our designs until we come across what we think is right. This is where we want it to be. That's something that maybe as a good designer with a good eye takes you half an hour. And you've gone from an initial sort of like just dump it on screen to, right, now I'm happy to start building that out. Well, just after using something like Claude Code and Bolt and so on, that process, that iterative process, takes so much longer that I just lose the will to do it. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, from a creative standpoint, I think there's benefits to it. Like, if you want to just dump an idea in there, you have a kind of entire design idea, and you want to dump it in there to give you a kind of, let's have a first draft visualization of what this could look like, a structure and so on, like you kind of do with Reloom, for example. I think that's quite cool. I did it with the music that I'm working on at the moment. I did it for an idea for the website. I thought, actually, that ends up quite cool. Wouldn't use those fonts, wouldn't use that. It's just dumped a pile of crap in there that it thinks it should have. But it sparked my interest and my idea process that I would then take that and I would build it myself. So from that point of view, it was quite enjoyable and enlightening. But it still took me probably the best part of 2 hours to get that even 50% of where it would be for me to actually use that as a design. That feels counterintuitive to me. Do you know what I mean? If you work on a project and time is money, do you really want to spend that amount of time waiting for something like Claude AI to come back with actually doing something and then potentially cause a problem in that entire phase of your design, or your building or whatever? I mean, are your experiences been similar, or am I just maybe like, I'm just a little bit new to the table and just not doing
I
something
keep it
wrong?
real. I think you're a little bit new, man.
Okay.
I know what you're talking about, because I was feeling that, but also started seeing, okay, this goes faster. This does get better. It starts to improve. And then
Yeah.
I look at like my buddy Reno. The dude flies creating stuff, and he's been grinding at it for a while. And I'm starting to get the hang of it. And I also think of things like when I'm in Figma creating a mock-up in there, I'm spending hours clicking away, trying new things out. I'm in the components. The components will take me hours. And, like, what I want to start seeing is, can I control this tool enough to do what I wanted to do and save me time, maybe creating components. Like, let's say for an example, this is where what I'm thinking and what's going on in my mind. Like, I'm thinking about bricks and connecting and seeing if I could get Claude Code to work with me on it. Now, I don't think right now it could go actually into the builder and do stuff. I think that might be beyond what it could do. But if it can, imagine being able to have a starting point with the components, giving it that, and then going in and being able to have that control to fix it up. Let the create, okay, that's a good starting point. Let's fix this up. But I know the frustration, man. I know it. Do you know what? When I started down, like getting into it, I just said I could build a website faster. I could just do it faster. And then I was just like, ah. And then I like got back into it, got obsessed, and it's like, okay, wait. And I'm starting to learn. I'm starting to see different ways of doing it, different ways to approach and structure, and it starts to show improvement. And I do think it is like a skill that takes time. Just it's like what we talked about in the very beginning. It's the processes and
Yeah.
getting those parts down.
Yeah. I think probably the most exciting one that I've seen so far, where you're saying about actually doing a lot of this inside the builder, is, as Dave Den just said about, is using Claude Code inside build areas. Like watching their demo video of that actually looks quite cool because it's integrated directly into it. It's trained, from my understanding, it's trained on how build areas actually works. And it's creating relatively clean content and code structure. So that's something I need to look into. But before I do that, I've got to get my Docker set up, and I've got to Docker, sort of set that up for the terminal point of view. Because at the moment, as we said the other day, we talked this, I ended up wiping my laptop because it's like, no, I'm not in control of that. I'm wiping my laptop and starting again. Not having that. No.
Yeah, like
That's all.
I went to like installed something for like I think I was on the third hour. I'm like, wait, what is being installed in
Yeah.
my Mac? Okay, let's take a step back and protect things. So yeah, I use containers now, so nothing gets installed in it. But this is like I don't know. To me, it's fun being able
I
to learn
agree.
again. Honestly, I haven't felt like I was having this much fun in a long time. Like I remember when I started web design and I started learning Sketch, and that's what I was using before Figma. Like I was waking up to it, going to sleep to it, and just going to bed excited for the next day.
Yeah.
And it's been this way, and I've been heavily into Claude. I could see Claude is leading the way in it right now. But have you got what's it called? What is it now? They changed the name so much. OpenClaw?
No. No, I did sort of, the guys from xCloud contacted me and set a server up for me to try it out. I just literally didn't have the time to do anything with it. But then you hear the sort of the horror stories about OpenClaw and all those kinds of things. It's like, there's just so much I want to concentrate on because it's very easy, especially the way things, the market, the sort of like the landscape is at the moment with AI and different tools and stuff like that. It's very easy to just flit from one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing, and it makes it impossible then for me to give time to anything to learn it well enough to be confident with it. But also it means that when it comes to creating content, I don't know what the hell to create content on because my brain is in 15 different places at the same time. And I'm just thinking, shit, what the hell do I do at this point? So I've got, and I'm very obsessive. It's like when I go down the rabbit hole or something, it's like I am all in on it. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, and I can't. I've got to be careful because if I do that and I try to do that on 5 different things, I'm just being pulled in different directions, and I literally can't spend enough time to become comfortable and confident with that thing to be able to do benefit to myself or anything else.
Yeah. I'm there right now.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm off to go do some Claude Code.
My mind is thinking about that. No, just kidding. It's very easy right now to get overwhelmed. And I caught that happening to myself, and then I realized that I need to just understand the basics first, the fundamentals. The fundamentals are the process. Like I want to understand, how do we build a website with just AI that could be delivered to a client in a real project? What does that need? What does that
Yeah.
look like? We need the foundation. We need something that, where of course the code has to be right, but we need security on top of it. We need backups. We need to be able to quickly, you know, get those backups in case of something breaks. We got to be able to have the CMS. We got to do a lot of things, and we got to make it repeatable. That is the challenge. Like, how do we make this all repeatable? So what I did, like I'm in Claude now a lot. I cancel my chat GPT. I don't know. I was just getting so angry with it. Like we were having fights and it kept telling me, you're right. And I'm like, you're stupid. And we're just going back and forth like that. Like if chat GPT gains control of the world, I'm not going to be in good standing with
Yeah.
it.
But
Oh, go ahead.
but to sort of say it about that, ChatGPT have actually opened up to the Department of War, from my understanding, whereas Anthropic said no. So read into that what you will. But anyway, I just want to sort of just drop that little nugget in there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're both talking to them anyways, even though one got the deal. Like, I just don't see the things happening that they said. I want to see some diseases being cured.
No.
Anyways. Claude is better now for lots of other reasons. But what I did was I created a project in there, and it's just like a learning project where I'm starting to learn each of those processes, understanding them. Like I know I don't need to know terminal like the back of my hand, but I can learn enough to understand what's going on, the basics of foundations and fundamentals. Same thing with the other parts are going to be really important, like Git and a lot of other stuff. Understanding the kind of different stacks, the different frameworks. There's times where I was working on a project and it goes by default spinning up the wrong framework. It starts on Next.js. I'm like, why did you go with Next.js on this? Vue would have been much better for this particular project. And of course, it does what it does. Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that, but it's just understanding those. We don't need to learn how to code them. And that's what I think is great for us web designers and creators. But we still need to learn. At least that's my opinion. My opinion is we need to learn a lot right now, to stay ahead. At least we don't need to learn every little new thing that pops up, but we need to learn. If we're going to build websites for clients or platforms, we got to understand how these things work.
Yeah, I think we do. Just the fact that we need to have a solid understanding of what's going on, because we're in a massive transitionary period right now. And it's very, very easy to kind of get caught up in the excitement of different things. And I honestly think we just need to kind of things need to settle down. As I've said before, I kind of feel like the next 24 months or so is going to be, it's just going to be the continual AI Wild West. As Toby's saying there, he said, Claude is good at this, but Gemini's better at that. And I think this is the thing we've got at the moment. It's like you've got the battle between like Anthropic, between sort of ChatGPT and so on, and Google and that. And they're all trying to better each other, which is great for us, but it also means it's a bloody minefield when you kind of get stuck into using that particular tool, and then it's like, oh, well, that was rubbish now compared to that one. Look at the sort of the video side of things. I mean, you've got Kling, you've got Higgsfield, which is kind of collates all the different models together and stuff like that. And they're making crazy advancements. But where do you invest your time? And the other difficult thing that sort of popped into my head is when you were sort of talking about the processes and stuff like that is, and I don't know if Toby and Dave kind of feel the same as this, is that it's very easy for people like us that have a technical background, that enjoy this kind of understanding Git, understanding terminal, understanding spinning things up, for different AI tools, alongside all the other things you kind of do. And we could put processes into place that are really cool to handle that for versioning inside your sort of Git and that kind of thing. And it's interesting and it's fun to do. But is there a market out there for people like us to actually be creating content on that? Because if you look at it, traditionally, it's the more beginner focused content that actually gets the interest. And then you get to another level. Because I mean, like Toby, for example, is doing a lot like with like Jet Engine and stuff like that, the dynamic content and things. And I'm not sure if he's seen the same thing. It's like you create content that's like at that level, should we say, and you get a lot of interest. And you create one that's a little bit higher, and you get nowhere near the same level of interest because it's probably gone beyond what people need to get the job done. And it's very difficult to kind of strike that balance between how technical do we need to get before our audience becomes this big, as opposed to keeping it a little bit sort of more low level, and we've got an audience this big. You know, we do this because we enjoy it, but we also do it because, I'm speaking for myself anyway, this is my job. This is what I do to make a living. This is what puts food on the table. This is what pays the bills. You know, this isn't something that I play at. This is something that I've invested 11 years of my life into building. And you've got to kind of find that balance between what's fun and what do people really want to know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And it's challenging right now on YouTube. It's really challenging. I'm noticing that the channels who are like doing really good and thriving right now are the ones that are putting out like 3, 4, 5 videos a week. I'm noticing that a lot of people are significantly upping their content, just how much they put out. And I kind of feel like the algorithm is pushing creators right now to do this, but I know what you mean. It's a challenge for sure. You know, like it's so much easier to go get views showing something cool than showing something, you know, realistic. And that's a tough part. And I kind of feel for a lot of the designers and developers out there right now that are seeing what's out there, what's being pushed in front of them. And, you know, some of the despair or negativity or, you know, just the pessimistic outlook on it, I could get it. And that's the reason why I like talks like this and to have these discussions, because we are in a great time for opportunity for those of us in our field. We just got to learn how to filter through the nonsense and, you know, what is actually real that, you know, that's something we should be part of learning that is going to help us out in our future.
Yeah, you know, we are seeing a lot of that fluff. Let's call it fluff. You know,
That's a nice way of saying it.
but it
I know what
it
you
is.
mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is fluff though. It is. It's like you look at most things in history of entertainment and education and things, and you'll see that there's different types, different levels of education. There's the fluffy education that basically just shows you how amazing this particular tool, topic, technique, whatever it is, and it's very surface level. And that's what we're seeing, I think, with a lot of the AI kind of content that's out there. Then you'll see the people that have a better understanding of it, and they're kind of going, okay, we're a bit more down in the weeds now. And it's like, if you want to do that, you can do it, but it's not as easy as it's been made out to be. This is the real way you do it. And then you've got the ones that are really down in the weeds. Like for example, I mean, Brendan O'Connell is a good example. He's very technical in how he likes to approach the content in his AI and stuff like that. And with like when you're dealing with N8N and automations and stuff, he goes in with a very technical way of working. And as long as you understand that, you've got the foundation. It is interesting. But I think you need the first 2 levels before you can even get to that. And I don't think people with the attention spans that people have these days will get past the fluff level before they even get to the next level. And with AI becoming even more prevalent, it's like, I think we talked about it very, very brief, and I'm conscious we've got about 5 minutes before we wrap things up, is the dead internet theory, which I've got a video coming out on in the next, week or so, because it's really interested me. And you can see it taking place already. You know, views, as we've already said, and I'm sure the other guys in here as well would sort of say the same thing, views in general the last year, 18 months, are down across the board. I'm looking at big channels that I've seen would be typically 50,000, 60,000, 100,000 views, and then videos that would begin like 5,000 views. You know, and it's like, there's a reason for that, because I think people are getting bored of like the channels, things like YouTube, because there's so much AI fluff on there. They go into tools like AI to get answers to things, and with some of the new advancements we got, like in Claude, for example, where it'll do diagrams and artwork and stuff like that, you can now ask it to visually show you how things work. Why would people watch a video when they can ask it that and they can have that back in a couple of seconds and they can interact with that information? It's difficult. And this, again, it goes back to the Wild West thing. That is going to, I think, reduce over time because people want to learn from people. And it's all good to get that AI kind of answer. But when you kind of have AI feeding AI, it degrades the quality of the answer. And we're already seeing that. I think it's because a lot of the answers we get back are very surface level. The AI you've got at the top of the search engines, most of the time I ignore it because a lot of the time it's not even bloody right. It's telling you to go to this, that, and the other menu. It's like, that isn't even in there. You're telling me to do something, and that isn't even in the software we're talking about. So I have no trust in that. And I think that's going to degrade the more we see it. There's more to it than that. But I mean, are you finding the same kind of thing? Are you finding that, well, just what we talk about there, like we are sort of starting to see that sort of dead internet where people are just moving away from what we're used to, but not in the right way, in a good way?
Yeah, no, a lot of things are happening right now. I mean, short form content already has done so much on our attention spans. Like what we just spoke about earlier, a ChatGPT telling you how awesome you are on everything you do. Your idea is the best idea. Why didn't I think of that? That is such a good idea. I just listened to another video yesterday about this, and I guess there's like a study going on, but apparently this is not good for people to hear when somebody keeps telling them, you're amazing. Wow, you're smart. When they're really have some boneheaded stuff that they're still getting complimented on. And I think just weird things are happening right now. It's funny, dude. Like, this is a funny time as well. Like, I kind of, I don't know. Some part of me just likes to sit back and be like, damn, dude, like our predecessors would have never imagined this happening, And I'm catching myself like yesterday. I wanted to get ready for the live stream. I want to set up an Ethernet. I've never done it before. So I YouTube, like setting up an Ethernet. I'm like, the videos are all like over 12 minutes long. I'm like, how long does it take to show you plug this thing in here and there? So I think like content creators also need to, if the video is about just plugging a damn thing into a thing, it shouldn't take 12 minutes, but yeah.
Yeah, I hate it where you watch a video and they tell you what they're going to do, then they have an intro, then they repeat what they're going to do again in a longer version, and you've gone 6 minutes into the video and you're still waiting, right? Just show me what I came for in this effing video. Just show me the shit, like, But to go back to the sort of like, yeah, you're right and all that kind of stuff, you do have to wonder if a part of that is because of the type of people that it's being aimed at, the generation, should we say? Because you and I are probably around at the same kind of age, so we've kind of come from a different time, shall we say, where people didn't sugarcoat everything. It's like there was no participation awards. You were either first, second, or third, and anything else after that didn't matter. And that's the way we were brought up. And then you move out into the real world and you realize that's what life is like. But the education system and society and things these days is very much sort of like, you did a fantastic job and you did your best. And that's an amazing achievement. And it's like, you're setting people up, especially kids, for failure. Because once they get in the real world and it's like, you're doing the job. What am I doing at the job? But I'm amazing. Why didn't I get the job? Well, because the next person was better, had more experience. But that's not fair. It's like, that's life. And I think that's probably why that's being done, things like that, is because if they're kind of thinking, look, the typical user of something like an AI tool like this is going to be your younger person, okay? Then we need to voice it in such a way that makes them feel valued and makes them feel understood and appreciated, no matter what they do. Even if they're right and we're wrong, or vice versa, we need to make them feel safe. And it's not real. I think that's probably a big part of why it's like that. It's just, I won't say what I really think of it all because we'll go down a
It's
rant.
intentional. It's
It is,
intentional. They're
yeah.
doing it on purpose. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They know they get people stuck. It's, doing things in the mind with the dopamine and all that stuff.
Yep.
And they know that, people are going through rough times right now. So to have this thing that you pay $20 a month to that gives you all the answers and tells you how good you are, like it's a dream come true, but it is causing harm.
Yes.
To people. It's just like short form content. It causes harm when you see somebody who is so into it where they just scroll. It's like we're supposed to be evolving forward, but these things are moving us back. And we got to look at where it's coming from. It's coming from tech giants who are worth trillions of dollars, and they will destroy society for another trillion and
Yes.
go to bed okay over it. But that's definitely going to the other thing. But at the same time, like I think it is important to bring it up. It's up to us though, as individuals, to protect ourselves and to work on ourselves. Running, it's beyond just being a web designer or running a web design business. The first thing we have to do is always work on ourselves. Our not just like the body, but the mind, the mentality, the spirit, all that stuff. You have to grow or go backwards. And right now, they want us to go backwards because we keep paying $20 a month. And now I can see I'm getting triggered, Paul. No, I hate that word, man. To be quite honest with you,
Triggered by fluff.
I'm feeling triggered. I need to go jump on TikTok for 3 hours and forget about it. let me
Forget
go
about life.
talk to my chat GPT for a while.
Before we wrap this up, though, I do want to bring you up on the point you just said, though, and that's the terrifying thing, is that people are using tools like ChatGPT as their best friend, their advisor, their mental health support, and all those things. And it's like you spend any time looking into this, and you realize that is truly friggin' terrifying to think that people are they're treating this thing like a real person, and you can't tell me that they're not being profiled behind the scenes, right? You tell me that is not profiling that individual, and you can say, oh, it's a conspiracy. We know, as we've already said,
we're all
anything
being
where
profiled.
people can find out more about you and control you in other ways. Look at like election. We're going down a real rabbit hole now, but look like elections and stuff like that.
I got another hour, man. We can do this.
But but when you look at it like that, and you realize that when you look at the algorithms in tools like social media and how that feeds you things and how that changes your mentality. I'll give you a great example. We talked earlier on very briefly about the WordPress drama that's kind of starting to bubble up a little bit again. Well, when that initially happened, sort of like September before last and all that kind of thing, I very heavily got dragged into that whole drama thing via X. Not so much get participating, but more just reading into it. And I literally had to stop even looking at it, even anything to do with it, because it was affecting my mood and how I approached certain things and how it tainted my outlook of things like WordPress itself as a platform. And that's a really simple example where that's not really targeting me specifically for something to change my perception of something. But when you can see how easy it is to do that, and you've got people out there that maybe are not as strong-willed as people like maybe you and I, where you can just say, right, I got to just get away from this, switch it all off, cut my brain off from that, and just get back to some sense of reality. Once you take that ability away from someone, it's really quite terrifying to think what could literally happen to people and how they could be manipulated so easily by these algorithms. Now put that into AI, where that starts to think for itself in a certain regards based upon whatever parameters it's kind of got. That's where the kind of like, the 1984 thing starts to come in and make you quite a scary potential reality. And we are as a society, we are basically blindly walking headlong into that to potentially make it a reality.
Yeah, we have to stay self-aware. We have to work on ourselves. We have to protect ourselves right now. This is what got me, and I'm prone like it could happen to me, and it does happen to me. I just when it does, I know I got to pull out and get out. That's why I got out of social media, and I just don't like being in it because I know what it does. When you hear what they talk about on social media is they want to steal your time and attention. That is, and they come out and say this like that is their goal. Their goal is to optimize everything so good that they could steal as much of your time and attention. That's scary as shit right there. That's the most valuable thing that we could have is time. And they want to steal it as much as they can. And yeah, so I got out of it. My life has been better once I got out. What's that?
And what type of content gets the most attention from you? Negative content.
Yes.
Yes. Because you have a much more emotional reaction to negativity than you do to positivity. If you see positive, you go, oh, that's nice. And then you move on with the rest of your day. But when you see something that's negative, you go, that's really pissed me off now. And then you get the keyboard warriors will be up on there and they'll be typing out their answers. And then you have an argument with someone on there that you've never met, that's in a different country with a different point of view and different social values and stuff. And you're, ugh! And you walk away then at the end of the day, you try to go to bed, your brain is raging. And it's like, for what?
Yeah.
It's kind of sad, but like you said, that they are attention engines. That's the whole algorithm and everything. YouTube, all of it. They're attention engines. They're there to take as much of your time every single day as is humanly possible. So they can pump adverts or make money from you for paying not to see adverts.
Yeah. And a good way to do that is divide everyone. Divide them. Have them, because then you got somebody that you feel is your enemy you want to fight. You don't think about, hey, that dude that's making trillions of dollars, maybe he's the one we should be going to his house with pitchforks right now, like they used to do in the good. Yeah. We all should get our pitchforks right about now. But yeah, that is going into a different realm. Just, got to do the work. You got to stay aware. And yeah, don't have an AI girlfriend. Like with somebody. I see that, dude. I could see I see this happening. It is so easy. When ChatGPT came out and like I had my health coach on it, I had my business coach. Dude, they steered me wrong, man. I started realizing I'm not making decisions for myself. I'm not thinking for myself. And I'll end with this. If anybody thinks like AI could replace a designer or developer, there's one thing AI can never do, and it can never have gut intuition. It can never just have that feeling that something is wrong. And I've seen now a lot more stories coming out where companies like Amazon are forcing their engineers to use AI. They're threatening them. They're firing them by the thousands. They say, you use this AI because this is the future. This is the future. And then they use the AI, and the AI deletes tens of thousands of orders, crashes a website, crashes their platform, costs the company hundreds of millions of dollars, way more than what they would, a fraction of, what it costs for all those developers they fired is a fraction to what they lost. And all because they didn't have a developer in there to say, you know what, I don't think it's right to delete everything. That's all they don't have that. And that's something that just can't be replaced, and it never will be. There's something about humans that we get that gut intuition, and that comes from somewhere. The gut is a second brain. Something happened along the way where we saw something, we don't retain it in our memory, but it sits in us because we got 90% of the brain that we haven't tapped into quite yet. We're doing all this with 10% of the brain. We created AI with 10% of the brain. That 90% will say, don't delete that. Don't hit the nuclear button right now.
Yes, we created AI without 10% of our brain, and that AI now is destroying the 10% that we use. What a lovely circle.
Right? Oh, yeah.
Right then,
well, next week on more conspiracy theories, I got a few more up my sleeve.
Yeah. So we're going to start a new podcast called, the Conspiracy Theory Duo.
Just one more. I got one
Go on
more.
then. Go on then. Go on, go on
Out
then.
there. I just heard about this. I got to dig into it, but apparently there's a new law going out saying that, Linux, like starting a Linux account, even if you don't, you have to now. And this is going to affect the world, something people should look into. I'm going to look into it. But basically, it's an age verification law that California, have you heard of it?
The UK have got the same kind of thing, and yeah, they're trying to sort of ID cards and all that kind of shit. It's a very
Yeah.
it's a slippery slope for sure. We're already surveyed and surveillanced enough in this country, so we won't go down that route too much because yes, it is shit. So,
Well, have a good rest of the week, everyone.
yes, enjoy your AI girlfriends, everybody, and remember to kill at least 1% of your brain cell every single day by using AI. This is a public service announcement brought to you by Let's Talk.
If you're having a bad day, just go to ChatGPT.
That's right,
fix
and
you
it'll
up.
be even worse. But you'll be amazing, and you were right. You were right all along. You're absolutely right. Anyway, Jeffrey, it's been a pleasure as always, and I think it's been fun. It's been fun to have, so like we said at the top of the video, the whole point of this is like us sitting around having a beer, just talking, shooting shit, and just talking about topics and things that we think are interesting. And hopefully, the people out there have actually been watching this have enjoyed it as well. I'll come back again in a couple of weeks where we'll be back on talking the same kind of shit again with different topics, or maybe some of the same topics. But anyway, Jeffrey, as always, been an absolute pleasure to spend time with you, sir. And how can people find out about you if, for any reason, they don't know?
Just ask ChatGPT. It got all
There you
the
go.
answers. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it. It's always awesome just having a talk and sparking the thoughts, and we'll see what happens next time.
God help us all. Anyway, thanks everybody. Thanks, Jeffrey. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Have a fantastic day, whatever you're doing. And yeah, stay
Thanks,
safe.
everyone.
Take care, man.
Cheers.